given at a very young age is the freedom and the encouragement to ask questions, to think, to contribute new pieces of knowledge. And that is really a special privilege for a young child to have, to feel like they can think deeply about things and understand the world and ask questions and have experts there to train them how to think and to explore the world on their own. I think about the archaeology program, which had a huge influence on me. In the first program, we were given an opportunity to explore an archaeological site. It was maybe not a genuine archaeological site, but there was an archaeological site recreated at the first program. I was entranced. I was absolutely sure that I was going to be an archaeologist, and I couldn't think of anything better than the ability to go and explore hidden worlds under the ground. And somehow we were encouraged to go through and carefully excavate the site and try to deduce where the site was from and why the artifacts were arrayed the way they were. I still think about that all the time as really an unbelievable experience to be given to a 9-year-old, to realize that the answers weren't going to be given to them, but the facts were there to be explored and interrogated and discovered. I think one thing I think a lot about how Dalton prepared me for subsequent education and college, it gave me confidence that I'd already been challenged in a safe environment where we were pushed to really think about how much could we learn, how deeply could we think. I came into college feeling very grateful that I had confidence to continue to push myself to acquire new knowledge. And I think that made college and the education that came afterwards, and frankly, still the work that I do, much more approachable than it would have been without Dalton's education. I was actually trained as an infectious disease doctor. I realized along the way that what really attracted me to medicine was not the daily practice of medicine, but the ongoing exploration of what's not known about how we can treat patients. Where can we continue to learn more about what causes diseases and discover new treatments? In particular, my lab is interested in understanding the cells in the immune system. And we're interested in how DNA inside of those cells in the immune system programs their behavior. How does variation in that DNA sequence influence how our bodies will respond to infections, to cancer, whether we go on to develop diseases like autoimmune diseases where the immune system goes out of control. And more now, we're really using CRISPR, which is a DNA editing tool, to go in and actually change those DNA sequences so that we can take cells out of our immune system, change the DNA sequences, and fundamentally reprogram those cells in the immune system to give them new powers to treat diseases. And we're heading to an era where rapidly, I think, we'll have the opportunity to treat a range of human diseases, ranging from cancer to infections to autoimmune diseases and maybe even other types of human diseases. There were a number of teachers at Dalton who really, I look back and really see the progression of how different teachers taught me how to think in different domains and pushed me to think logically, to communicate, to write, to explore. And there were a number of them. Ron Schallenberger, who very specifically trained me to think like a biologist, which is an amazing thing to do for a high school student. On an actual final exam, one question was, how do you cure HIV? And obviously HIV has not been cured. This was not a factual answer. There wasn't something you could go and look up in a book, but somehow we were encouraged to imagine how we would take the knowledge that's out there and think about how that could lead to a cure that doesn't yet exist. And that really is thinking like a biologist, that science is not a set of facts to be memorized, but a practice and an ongoing exploration to imagine what's not possible and to see how that might be brought into reality. Challenge was just built into education at Dalton, and not in the sense of just it being hard, but challenge of pushing ourselves in a number of different domains was just daily experience of being surrounded by people who knew things that I didn't know, who were teaching me, who realizing that none of us had all the answers, that we were continuing to learn, and seeing that as an ongoing process rather than some fixed point that could be achieved and succeeded. There's many projects that I think about at Dalton. I can see them very clearly in front of me. Early explorations of math systems in Dr. Mason's sixth grade math class. In seventh grade social studies, we're asked to invent a continent that doesn't exist and to create its history and culture and meteorological patterns. I think about the assignments of sitting with Dr. Glassman and doing an independent assignment to pick a book of American literature that we wanted to read on our own and to write about it, delving deep into the imagery of, and metaphors of Lolita, and also being taken on a field trip to Cold Spring Harbor and being given a chance to do a PCR reaction. And I remember this feeling of being electrified to actually look and be able to see DNA in doing gel electrophoresis. That was a key moment in my just being entranced by the power of biology. I think about Mr. Sturm and how he asked us to prove things in geometry class, and the idea that math wasn't, again, not just a series of problems to solve, but things that we could actually deduce and prove was a really important part of how I learned to think. And then philosophy with Dr. Zangatito. You know, I guess it's pretty amazing that we even had a philosophy class, but to sit and discuss Descartes and ideas of existence is something that really turned me on to the joy of ideas. I think the fondest memory of Dalton are my memories of my friends. Many of my friendships go back to early Dalton days. My closest friend and I met when we were 3 in the nursery school, but many of my closest friends are from Dalton. I feel very lucky that I got to spend 15 years surrounded by people who are still the people that I choose to want to be surrounded with, who I trust, and are just great friends. You know, it's funny, I just went back to Dalton for my 25th reunion, and we were in the auditorium, and we all got up and sang the school song and sang the words, "We go forth unafraid." And I felt some surge of nostalgia, but also a real feeling of encouragement that I got from Dalton to go forth unafraid, to have been trained and trusted to play a role in exploring the world and thinking about how we could gain new knowledge and then use it for human good, were all values that I took as sort of the underlying responsibility that came with the encouragement to go forth unafraid. Sometimes I wish I could go back to Dalton and explore all the things that I didn't get to fully explore, to spend more time in the arts program. And there was just so much there. And I talked about some of the teachers who influenced my lives, but it wasn't meant to be comprehensive. There were many, many others who had profound effects on how I think and how I see the world. And their lessons continue to come back into my mind at unexpected moments.